Hello and welcome to the Quincy Access Television Studios. I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us for In the Know, a program that helps you to stay informed. Today we will be talking with the Norfolk County Mosquito Control. And joining me is Kaitlyn O'Donnell. She is an entomologist with the Norfolk County Mosquito Control. Welcome first to this studio. You have been on other local access programs, but not at Quincy Access Television.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I guess talk about the history of the Norfolk County Mosquito Control, brief history, and I guess what they're known for. It's in the title, clearly.
Yeah, well, we were founded in 1956, so we've been around for quite some time. We are a state agency, and we have 25 member towns that all fall within Norfolk County. So it is kind of more of a town-by-town basis who's a part of our program. Some towns that are technically in Norfolk County belong to other programs just because of geographics.
Right, because I was going to say there's 28 communities in Norfolk County, but you mentioned 25.
But we have, 25 member towns. And those other three belong to other mosquito control districts. So the state has multiple mosquito control districts and tries to cover as much as it can of the state. We all do very similar work in our respective areas.
Clearly there's no lack of mosquitoes. They seem to be quite prevalent. Matter of fact, you have examples we're going to be looking at, but I guess first I'll have you kind of put up the board or the display case that's in front of you, because that is an example of the mosquitoes that can be found around here.
Yes, these are many different species that we have in Massachusetts. We have over 50 species of mosquitoes in Massachusetts, which not everybody really is aware of. That's a lot of different types. But when we're doing our mosquito control for public health and public nuisance work, we're really only focusing on about a dozen or so that bite humans and transmit diseases.
It's not the male and female that bite, it's just the female.
Yes.
Is that true for all mosquitoes?
Yes, all mosquitoes, if they bite and take a blood meal, which there is a species of mosquito that we have here that does not need a blood meal. All mosquitoes, it's the females that bite because they need a source of protein in order to develop their eggs. The males don't need that protein, so they just need to take in sugar to keep up their energy. So they actually will visit flowers and drink nectar and things like that.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Geez, I wasn't aware of that. I thought they all were bloodsuckers, if
Yeah,
you will, but no.
Just the females. And we have one species of mosquito that's called, the common name is the elephant mosquito because it is quite large and it has a curved proboscis that looks kind of like an elephant's trunk. And they do not need any blood meal to survive. They are pollinators. They drink nectar from flowers. They're a very beautiful mosquito, shiny, blue, purple iridescence. And they are actually predators of other mosquito larvae in their larval stage. So that's where they get their protein.
They're good to have around.
They are very good to have around.
How prevalent are they?
They're not commonly seen. I'll find them once in a while in the field. So they're not super common, but they're out there.
If you could hold that up once again, and
Sure.
I'd like our camera person to just show the variety of sizes. I guess if we look at from one side to the other, or maybe below, it seems to be, the mosquitoes seem to be pretty big down there.
One of our largest species in the area, this is a floodplain mosquito. They are quite large. Their bite, you can really feel it when they bite you. And then next to it is Aedes albopictus. It's the tiger mosquito. They can be quite tiny. So there's a pretty big difference in the sizes.
And when a mosquito bites, can you explain what that does? A lot of people might know of it at the time, just a little uncomfortable. Later on, it becomes a bump and then it's itchy.
Yeah. They have, their mouth parts are what's called a proboscis. So it's kind of like a butterfly's proboscis that unrolls and goes into a flower. But this just has a pointy end so that it can pierce through your skin. There are some great videos online really showing close up and dissecting what happens because it is quite complicated. The proboscis is made up of all these layers that do different things as it enters your skin, but it goes into the skin and kind of pokes around until it finds a capillary or a vessel that it can poke into and start sucking your blood. And it uses different compounds in its saliva to sort of anesthetize and also allow the blood to flow so that they can more efficiently bite you without you noticing. Sometimes you feel it, so that means that they probably didn't do a very good job of getting that saliva in there first.
Right.
And that's also what your skin is reacting to when you swell up and have a red bump and feel very itchy. It's to those compounds in the saliva and from being poked with a proboscis.
Right. And it's not only humans that get bitten, correct?
Yeah. So there are some species that feed only on worms. And a lot of species that feed on different types of amphibians and reptiles, and some species that feed only on birds. So there are a lot of different types of mosquitoes that specialize on other organisms besides humans.
I guess this plays in with what the Norfolk County Mosquito Control does year-round. But let's talk about the life cycle of a mosquito.
Yeah, the life cycle of mosquito, they need standing water in order to survive. They use standing water for 3 out of their 4 life stages. So they go through the egg stage, the larval stage, the pupal stage, which is like a cocoon that a caterpillar makes to become a butterfly. It's the same idea. And then their adult stage, which is when we see them. So in their egg, larval, and pupal stage, they're either submerged in water or on the edge of water waiting for that water to come to them in the case of an egg stage.
We have a video that we will show just momentarily that basically alerts folks to the various breeding grounds, and there are many that mosquitoes use. We will go to that in just a minute, but before we get there, as you're talking about the stages, and as we're talking about what the Norfolk County Mosquito Control does year-round, I suppose put these two things together.
Sure, yeah. Well, in regards to the video, that's really focusing on breeding areas in your own yard. So a lot of mosquitoes are really well adapted to surviving with people. They'll use a lot of our own things, trash or items in our yard that fill with water and can happily reproduce there. But they also have a lot of natural environments as well. So they like to breed in salt marshes, certain species, which Quincy has plenty of salt marshes, and natural wooded pools, vernal pools, all different types of more permanent water sources. So they really are very versatile in the water that they need. The requirement is that it's standing water. So in the wintertime, what we do is a form of habitat management to allow water that should be moving to continue moving. So whether it's clearing out ditches that should be flowing and that have gotten clogged up with debris, or clearing out culverts, some streams that have been clogged, a lot of the winter work we do is this kind of labor in the field to keep water that should be moving, moving. And that moving water will prevent mosquitoes from using that as a breeding habitat.
And now we have some examples of mosquitoes in water here, and we will get up close and personal with these. But possibly you can explain, we will get a close-up view, but you can explain what folks will see in just a moment.
Yeah, so I have a couple cups here that have the larval stage of the mosquito. There is one pupa in here as well. And these larvae will have just hatched from eggs. The cup with the darker water, they're much smaller. They're a lot younger. So mosquitoes go through 4 what's called instars, so stages of larval development. And with each instar, they get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So these ones are tiny, they just hatched. These ones are a little bit bigger. They've been swimming around and feeding for 2 weeks now. So you'll see different sizes, but they all use the same water and swim around. They're filter feeders. They're using their mouth parts to kind of sweep the water through and filter feed in that environment. Some mosquitoes will overwinter as larvae or as eggs. So we'll start with the eggs. If they're hatched or they're laid in, actually a lot of them are being laid right now. All the mosquitoes that are coming off in the spring and have only 1 generation per year, they'll lay those eggs, and those eggs will remain dormant until next year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so those eggs are living, months of the year just in a dormant state and waiting for that water to be at the right level and for the timing to be right for them to hatch. And then when they hatch into the larval stage, they're really only alive for a few weeks. It depends on the temperature. So insects are cold-blooded. The warmer it is, the faster they develop. So as the water kind of shrinks down and the leaves come out in the spring, the water volume gets smaller, temperature gets warmer, they can develop a little bit faster. But they'll be in their larval stage for a few weeks or so. Then they'll come out as adults, and they really will only live again for a few weeks or so. Other species live longer. We have some species that have multiple generations per summer, and they can live for, a few weeks, a month. Generally, we say about a month, because it just depends on, how far they get and whether they get eaten by something or not. But
Sure.
or swatted by one of us.
You had mentioned that standing water is what they need. And I think, why don't we show that video now, and then we'll come back and talk about more about what the Norfolk County Mosquito Control Program does.
Great.
Hi, my name is Kaitlyn O'Donnell, and I'm the entomologist at the Norfolk County Mosquito Control District. Today we're going to talk about how to prevent mosquitoes from breeding at home. Mosquito larvae need standing water to survive. You can check any standing water you have at home for mosquito larvae or pupa. Here's an example of what they may look like. Come with me and we'll take a look at some common areas that hold standing water. Up first is a tarp. Any folds of a tarp may collect standing water and create a really nice habitat for mosquitoes to lay their eggs and breed. You'll want to make sure you dump out any standing water that's being held inside of your tarps. After a rainfall, your wheelbarrow that's not flipped over may fill with water. This will create another area where mosquitoes can breed. You'll want to make sure that you dump that out. Standing water could even collect in low points in your driveway. If this standing water lasts for more than 7 days, you'll want to try and get rid of that standing water or apply something to it to prevent mosquitoes from breeding. Mosquitoes do not need a large amount of water to survive. They can develop in as little or smaller pools of water than what can collect on top of an overturned trash barrel. Buckets that collect water, trays, and planters without proper drainage, or even the trays that may be placed underneath a planter, can collect water and breed mosquitoes. Another common mosquito breeding area are clogged gutters that allow water to collect and pool. If you see a lot of debris sticking up out of your gutter, you're going to want to get your gutters cleaned out. Another common area is bird baths. If this water is flowing and you have a bubbler, it should be fine, but if it's still water, you want to change it out at least every 7 days. This bird bath right here is breeding mosquito larvae. Here's another example of a bird bath that is holding water, and there's a lot of leaf debris on the bottom. That creates a really enticing habitat for mosquito larvae. Tires that collect water can also breed mosquito larvae, so you'll want to make sure that you empty out any tires. This tire has mosquito larvae breeding in it as well. There's a larva right there. Tires without the rim can collect water in the middle. Those tires, you'll also want to remove the water and get rid of them to prevent mosquito breeding. A water feature that has water moving is going to prevent mosquitoes from breeding. So this is a good option for bird baths and other water features that you want to have at home and prevent mosquitoes from breeding. You'll want to make sure that you're changing out any water that is pooling at the bottom regularly. Even places you may not think of will hold standing water, like the back of this basketball hoop. A lot of times toys that are left in the yard will collect water and breed mosquitoes. This basketball hoop has quite a few larvae swimming around in there. Thank you for watching. We hope this reminds you to clean out any standing water that you have at home.
After watching that, I thought to myself, I knew about the tires. I knew about, well, especially, you didn't address it here, but pools, kiddie pools.
Yep.
But there's a lot, tarps, and the overturned barrel. You wouldn't think it doesn't collect that much water, yet mosquitoes don't need that much water.
Yeah, and in the heat of the summer, they develop pretty rapidly. So it really only needs to be collected and standing for 5 to 7 days for you to be breeding mosquitoes.
You had mentioned what the Norfolk County Mosquito Control does I guess, in the winter months, other months other than the months that we're in now, the spring, summer. So what do they do in the spring and the summer? Folks will naturally know about spraying. That's one of the things that's done during this time period.
Yeah, well, we haven't started yet. We start after Memorial Day. In the spring, we're really focused on controlling the mosquitoes in their larval stage, so preventing them from even becoming adults at all and being able to bite people or animals. So what we do there is we'll go out into the field, and this can be by request or just wetlands that we already know of just from our institutional knowledge of being around for so long. And we'll go and check those wetlands, and if we find larvae, we can treat it with a product that's called BTI. It's a bacteria that's found in the soil, and it occurs naturally, and it kills mosquito larvae and black fly larvae, and that's it. So it's a really, really useful tool for us to be able to apply that to the wetland and have an effect on the mosquito population and not on anything else.
So how do you apply that?
It's a granular product, so they're little tiny pebbles depending on the formulation, and we can apply it by hand or with a backpack blower. And then in April, we do a helicopter application. So some people may be familiar with that. We've been doing it for a very long time, and it usually occurs mid to late April. And the helicopters will fly low over these larger wetlands that we can't treat by hand, and they'll treat it with that same product. So a lot of people call that a spray, and we like to just emphasize that it's not the same product that we're using in the summer to kill adult mosquitoes. It is a granular product that we're dropping specifically into the wetlands, not anywhere else.
The spraying that's done for adult mosquitoes in the summer months.
Yep, so that's done by truck, and we'll do a neighborhood-wide spray, and this is all by request or in response to disease found. So we're only spraying if we know that there's an active mosquito issue, because the product we use kills mosquitoes that are flying at the time. Some people who hire private companies, they'll have their yards treated to prevent mosquitoes on a longer term. That's not the type of product that we're using. What we're using is active only as we spray it. It degrades in sunlight, so by the next morning it's gone.
You had mentioned the granular nature to something that really occurs naturally in the soil.
Yep.
That is unlike the spraying, which is done. So talk about, I suppose, the chemical makeup of the spraying.
Sure, and on the granular product, I will also mention that that's something you can get in the store to use if you have some kind of water receptacle at home that you can't be regularly emptying out. You can use a product from the store that has that same bacteria in it.
Folks are collecting, let's say, rainwater into a tub.
Yeah.
That's the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I don't know, they probably find an easy way to get in there, I would imagine.
Yeah, there are different options you have for using a rain barrel. You can try and really screen it very well so that mosquitoes cannot fit in, but they can be quite tiny and they're kind of sneaky. So and you have to keep up on it because that screening can break. So that's one method. You can put something like dish soap or mineral oil that will break the surface tension so that mosquitoes aren't able to land on the water to lay their eggs. That's one option. You can use something like a mosquito dunk or a product that has BTI in it to prevent breeding. There are a lot of different options you can use.
Getting back to the spraying and what makes up the chemicals in the spraying, and I suppose folks that might be concerned about their health, or the health of their pets.
So we use the chemical name is etofenprox, and a lot of the information about this product is on our website. It is what's called by the EPA a low-risk pesticide, and we use it at a very, very low rate. So we use what's called ultra low volume spraying. Those sprayers on the back of the trucks apply a tiny, tiny amount of this product. It's less than a shot glass per acre, and it goes up into the air. It's killing mosquitoes that are flying at the time. The timing of our spray is very important. We spray after sundown, so that's when pollinators are not being active anymore, and when people tend to not be as active anymore, but it's when mosquitoes can be very active. A lot of species are most active in the dusk to few hours after dusk hours. There are different timings depending on the species. We also are using it at such a small rate because mosquitoes are tiny. So it doesn't take very much of it to kill them, whereas it takes a lot more for it to be toxic to anything else. So this product that we use is actually less acutely toxic than caffeine, but we wouldn't be, everything you use to the appropriate dose. So
Should folks be made aware if spraying is being done in their area? Should they close their windows?
yeah, that's a question that we get a lot. And that, according to the label, is really up to the person. On the label, it does not say that you have to close your windows. Some people like to. Everyone can go on our website and type their address in to find out the timing of our work in the evening if they wanted to know. A lot of people choose to also become no sprays, where we have a 300-foot buffer around your property, and that's a totally acceptable thing as well.
And I guess what determines when a spraying is done? Is it one person? Is it a community? Is it a street?
Yeah, well, we have a set schedule where we will try to get to each town each week, and we are spraying in response to complaint calls. So people calling and saying, I'm being bit by mosquitoes, I have an active mosquito problem. And we generally do get those calls. So we're responding to that. We're also responding to any diseases we might be finding in our traps. So at being the entomologist there, I do all of the surveillance, and surveillance is a really important part of integrated mosquito management. So all of these different tools that we use to make sure that we're controlling the right mosquitoes at the right time. So I know what species are out there, where they are, and whether they're carrying diseases, and we can use that to really inform our pesticide decisions.
Right. You talked about the various types of mosquitoes and IDing them. How do you ID them? I assume you trap them.
Yeah, so we put out traps. We have a few different types of traps that we use, but this is one of them. This is called a CDC trap. We attach it to a battery that runs a fan, and the mosquitoes are blown into this collection cup. So then I can take this cup and I put them in the freezer to knock them out, and then I look at them and see what species we have, and we prepare them for disease testing. The way that we attract the mosquitoes to this trap is we use a tank of compressed CO2. So when we're breathing out, that's how mosquitoes are finding us and coming to bite us. So we're kind of using that to our advantage and baiting this trap with carbon dioxide. So this trap is specifically looking for mosquitoes that are in search of a blood meal. They're looking for that carbon dioxide source and wanting to bite something and take a blood meal before laying their eggs usually.
Talk about the disease or the diseases that mosquitoes carry that can be, they can be deadly to us.
Yeah, so they do carry a lot of different diseases. The two that we're focused on in Massachusetts are West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis. While they can carry other things, a lot of the diseases that you hear about in the news are more of a tropical disease, and we're really looking at that as far as travel-related cases in Massachusetts. But with warming, who knows?
Right.
So West Nile virus, we usually find it every summer. It's pretty established here. It came to the United States in 1999, so it's been here for quite some time. And that cycles in the bird population. So birds are the reservoir host. Mosquitoes that like to bite birds are biting a bird and passing West Nile from one bird to the next. Then later in the summer, after that virus has enough time to build up in the bird population, a bridge vector will bite a bird, and this bridge vector, that's why it's called a bridge vector, also likes to bite people or horses or whatever it may be. So that mosquito will take the virus from the bird population into people. And we are what's called a dead-end host, so a mosquito cannot bite us and get West Nile virus from us. So that's very different than a lot of the tropical diseases you hear about, like dengue and chikungunya. Mosquitoes cannot pick up West Nile virus from us and transmit it to another person. The symptoms are very flu-like, and it is usually resolves itself. It's a virus, so there's not much you can do. You can hydrate, rest. It usually will resolve itself, but in some cases, especially in the older population, it can be pretty severe. Then we have Eastern equine encephalitis. It's very similar to West Nile in its cycle. It's also uses birds as a reservoir host. And this is a different species of mosquito that transmits it. So that's also important to know when I'm doing my surveillance. What species am I looking at? I know this species is more likely to carry West Nile. I know this species is more likely to carry Eastern equine encephalitis. So,
Right.
And they use different habitats in the environment. That's why you kind of see these hot spots of these diseases pop up in different areas. West Nile is more of an urban disease, so we do pick it up in Boston, Quincy, a lot of the surrounding towns around Boston. Whereas Eastern equine encephalitis comes from cedar swamps, red maple swamps, a lot more swampy environments like that that are not really found in the city so much. So that's
Right.
happening elsewhere in our county. And Eastern equine encephalitis is more rare. It usually happens in cycles. So 2019, if you'll remember, we had a pretty big outbreak in the state. 2020, it was still around, and then we haven't really picked it up since then. But we'll be looking for it again this summer since it's been so wet out there.
And that one can be deadly, correct?
Yes. It does have a very high mortality rate if you develop symptoms.
What can folks do, I suppose, regarding clothing, regarding sprays, on their own person to avoid being bitten?
Yeah. Well, a lot of this does come down to some aspect of personal responsibility because it is hard to get rid of all the mosquitoes, and we don't even necessarily need or want to do that. But people can wear personal repellents. So there are a lot of different options. The EPA has quite a few different recommended repellents, one of which is DEET, which everybody knows about. What I like to say for DEET is that you really don't need anything stronger than 30%. So anything around 30% is going to be perfect, and you just follow what's on the can, reapply when you need it. Another one that I like to recommend to people who don't like DEET is picaridin, and that's becoming a lot more popular in more recent years, and that's because it doesn't have that same smell that DEET has, that stickiness. So some people prefer that. It's just as effective in tests. There's also an EPA-approved natural repellent, which is oil of lemon eucalyptus. So same thing there. You're going to need to follow the directions on the bottle that you get and reapply when needed. Only apply it to the areas that it directs you to. And with what is by far the best repellent for ticks and also for mosquitoes is permethrin. That is one that you really need to follow the directions because that you only apply to clothing. So a lot of the clothing that you can buy from places like outdoor sporting stores that come with, a lot of times it's called insect shield or different things like that, that will have permethrin in the fabric, and it's good for multiple washes. You can buy a can of it and do that yourself at home. Spray the clothes that you like to hike in, the clothes that you like to garden in. Don't forget your socks, spray your socks, especially for tick prevention. And you can wear long sleeves, long pants. Loose fitting is better for mosquitoes because that proboscis can bite through a lot of things. It can bite through jeans. So if you have something that's looser and kind of falling away from your skin, they won't be able to get up against that skin as well.
Makes sense. And I guess the last thing I will add is time of day. There's a time of day when the mosquitoes are most active.
Yeah, that again depends on the species. So the tiger mosquito that is kind of newer in our area, they bite during the day. So that's a new thing that we have to deal with. A lot of other species will bite during the day if you're in the right habitat. If you're hiking in the woods and it's shaded, they'll come out and bite you. But for the most part, in neighborhoods and things, those types of mosquitoes are going to be biting at dusk or a few hours after dusk.
Very good. Such an informative program. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching. And please remember to continue to support local access programming in your community to support programs just like this.